So let's get it started. Let me welcome our first presenter, Mike Brenham from PointCentral. As Mike's getting set up, let me just read you a little bit about him. So with nearly 20 years of experience in real estate technology, one second, I lost my script. There it is. With nearly 20 years of experience in real estate technology, Mike has been part of several successful prop tech startups serving the multifamily industry. He worked with several former Google executives to help launch RentBits, which landed on Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing private companies in 2008, and helped launch the industry's first IoT platform remotely, which earned Product of the Year at the 2015 AIM Multifamily Conference. Mike is now the Director of Multifamily Sales at PointCentral, which offers property automation platforms to apartment owners and operators. PointCentral Technologies, combined with its parent companies, ALRM.com, is installed in nearly 7 million homes across the United States. Welcome, Mike.
All right, thank you, Bethany, appreciate that. And thank you all for being on here this morning. Appreciate your time. As we've all gone virtual here the last several months, I think we're getting used to this. So good to be on. So, today, we have a half hour. So I'd encourage questions that you have. And I'll certainly provide some time at the end, and I'll provide contact information as well in case you want to dive a little bit deeper. But today, we want to talk about the property automation space. And, I'll use the slides as kind of a beacon for us here today. But the reality is, in 15 years in multifamily and, almost 10 now with this specific product, we've seen the multifamily or just the IoT graveyard as a whole really stack up, and that's kind of a morbid way to describe it. But I say this because this is a technology that really requires some organizational stability, a platform emphasis as opposed to the gadgets. So gadgets will come and go, but really starting this product with a foundational view on the platform is absolutely the way to go, because when you start to look at this through the multifamily lens, where it's not your house or mine, where if we put a gadget on the wall, and if that gadget goes away, we're out $100. When you start to put thousands of devices in a particular building, or perhaps even tens and thousands of devices into a multifamily portfolio, and those devices or that company goes away, you have a massive problem. So here's just an example of some groups that have come and gone that were actually pretty well funded, but didn't really emphasize the platform. And, I like to start with that because what PointCentral is a subsidiary of ALRM.com. We've been at this for about 10 years, and we are wholly focused on the property management space. So we want to deliver operational value to asset owners and managers, enhance building performance and insights, and really facilitate positive connections between staff, asset owners, and then the resident base. So coming from ALRM.com, which has been in business for 20 years, so collectively we've got 30 plus years of experience, we feel strongly that we're not going away. We're in nearly 7 million housing units, and that's a combination of single family, multifamily, vacation properties, et cetera. But we've connected over 90 million devices. And so, forgive me for a little bit of backpatting right now, but it's really important to just illustrate the experience of being able to put the devices out into the field. And then from there, these devices generate an enormous amount of data. So just last year alone, we generated over 200 billion data points, and that data has to go somewhere. So, you really want to have a partner in this thing that has a high degree of emphasis on network and data security. So let's talk a little bit more about the product, right? So I like to say this. Look, the smart apartment has graduated, right? 5, 6, 7 years ago, this was really a concept, and what we'd hear out in the field is, hey, the future is coming. This is a really important product that we'll all have to sort of get our arms around. Reality is it's here. It's been operationalized. It's been installed in hundreds of thousands of multifamily buildings, and it's much more than just the resident-based amenity to maybe fuel a little bit of rent growth. It's an operational tool, and it's generating good building insights. So it's come a long way in the last handful of years, and the conversations I'm having are so interesting now, because it used to be, hey, we're not sure if we should do this. And if we do, like, who should we do this with? Now we're behind, like we have to do this, not because everyone else is doing it, although that's true. It's because it's actually generating really healthy returns. So when I say the smart apartment is graduated, what does that really mean, right? At PointCentral, we call this curb to couch automation. And that's, really taking what used to be a Z to A conversation, which was, hey, what kind of devices should I put in my units? And it's really moved to an A to Z conversation from the exterior of the building all the way in. And that's a hard challenge to solve if you don't have, not only the experience, but also just the ability to connect different types of devices in a really seamless and harmonized manner. So, when COVID hit, this really illustrated the challenge, which is, it sort of forced a lot of folks to go remote, and it also really brought a lot more demand and a lot more traffic to the communities, be it people working from home, for Uber Eats and DoorDash and Amazon, just more and more deliveries coming on site, even more so than before, before it was certainly, a lot of demand. So what we have is a curb to couch access control solution. So regardless of what the access code is for different user types, be it residents, guests, staff, et cetera, we can harmonize these access codes to ensure they're unique for different user types, but consistent across different access points. So that's a really easy and cost-effective way for either retrofits or new construction to really marry what we'd say in-unit automation with an access control solution. And here's just a quick illustration of that workflow, right? So it's not uncommon to have, a video type of a call box, or even like a dated type of a door keying, intercom solution. Doesn't matter. Like we can work with those types of devices, include that with common area access points, and ultimately get you to the unit door if you're a resident. So it's seamless access with a PointCentral digital key solution. Guest entry, and otherwise known as really intercoms, is really prevalent, right? So several months ago, we acquired a company called Doorport, and Doorport works with existing telephone-based intercoms. And within about 5 minutes, we have a software solution on the back end that can modernize that call box. So if groups aren't looking to rip that expensive solution out and go with something different, it's a great way to manage costs, but still modernize that solution. So really what we're looking to do is defragment a lot of these different technologies and access points and put them on one single smart home solution. Same goes for groups that might be a little bit more modern, maybe a Butterfly MX type of a solution. We'll be able to work with that type of a solution as well, just to support seamless access flow regardless of user type. And that gets us to the in-unit piece, right? So what do we do? What does PointCentral do? I like to bucket this into 3 different areas. The Trojan horse is the operational efficiencies. So we want this to be easy for staff. And that's really important because as more and more technology comes into the multifamily asset, it's the staff that really gets overwhelmed when this isn't simple. So this runs behind the scenes, and it runs behind the scenes because we integrate with their home-based property management software, Yardi, RealPage, Entrata, et cetera. Second bucket here is asset protection. So some of this depends on the type of devices that are actually inside the unit. But think of energy management from thermostats is a great example there, lighting. Property awareness with video solutions in common areas. HVAC and leak monitoring, which I'll talk about more in a moment. These are really healthy analytics and insights that really provide preemptive or proactive notification to staff, mainly maintenance, if there is an issue, and that's notification at the onset of an issue, rather the reactive case, which today is, oh wow, we just got a call that there's a water leak and that's expensive, or hey, our HVAC system isn't running efficiently. We usually don't know that until today, unless there's an expensive bill or an altogether breakdown. We can provide proactive insights to alert maintenance at the onset. And then, last but not least is the amenity for the resident or the guest. This is in-demand technology. The residents are bringing their smart homes into the units. They're bringing their own smart devices into the units. So they're asking for this today. And this is now a way for them to customize their living experience, give them a positive experience, and hopefully that will impact retention and referrals. Here's just a quick flash of ecosystem integration. So you'll see a lot of key logos there that our users work with, and that's usually one of the first questions out of the gate is, do you integrate with Yardi? And that's just really important. That way, this technology can ultimately run behind the scenes. And we say this a lot: if your staff is living in Yardi, we want to keep them there 95% of the time. So what does that mean? And I'll use Yardi as an example here with some screenshots. If a group wants to add a work order, they would go into Yardi as they do today, right? And input some really basic information. Now, behind the scenes, without the staff ever having to log into PointCentral, an access code is created and then populated in the Yardi dashboard. And now maintenance, rather than spending time key fishing, they've got more wrench time to actually address an issue in the unit. Makes it more seamless, more efficient. When it comes to move-ins, really basic information that's being inputted today, capturing that data as a staff normally would, first name, last name, just inputting that type of data into the system. Again, on the back end, without the staff doing anything different, that user is created and automatically a welcome email is sent to that resident, and within 60 seconds, they can customize their living experience. They have a smart apartment. Really basic, right? On the move out, of course, that outgoing user, that resident is moved, so of course they lose access to the system. But just as important, what this does is creates automations behind the scenes to ensure that when they move out, the door will now lock and the thermostat will move into what we call a vacant unit bucket. And when that happens, the vacant units are all triggered to be into an energy savings mode. And when that happens, that starts to save big dollars on vacant units, especially if third parties may come in and maybe open up the windows or drive down the air conditioning. We can now automatically make sure that thermostat comes down to the desired set point for a vacant unit, and perhaps notify maintenance as well that there could be a window open. So a lot of different things happening behind the scenes there. We like to say this, that not all smart devices are smart, and they're certainly not all created equal, and they may not function, in your home the way they would in a multifamily environment, which is very high density, thousands of devices looking to communicate at the same time. So we do a couple of things there. We're pretty prescriptive, about the types of devices that we'll allow into a multifamily building. Still a really healthy amount of choice. But we've done the legwork to ensure that that device is reliable and it's secure. From the resident standpoint, they get a really slick app, right? So that's kind of the easy part to this. When it comes to that resident creating that resident or their own experience, you just see a lot of different reviews about liking the type of choices they have when it comes to how they can automate moods or settings, or set up geofencing so the thermostat hits a desired set point when they hit a certain proximity going to work or coming home from work. So really cool features there that allows them to just have a different type of experience that is housed inside technology. Some of the key differences that we've really seen out there, and I'm going to wrap up here in a moment so we can get to some questions, is this has to be built for the multifamily environment, right? So whether it's a portfolio, a building, or just individual, units, we can set up and customize logins based on how that operator so chooses. So, typically somebody at the corporate office that oversees a portfolio, has a different type of desire and need to see different types of data points with this technology than perhaps an on-site manager at a particular property. So we can customize logins and controls accordingly. And when that happens, you just get really unique types of viewpoints that are based on someone's role, whether that's someone in technology, in operations, asset management, finance, or a building manager. So that's something that's important to keep in mind, is that it's got to be an enterprise type of software. COVID hit and self-guided tours became really important, but I saw a big wave even prior to COVID that groups were either having property staff work in kind of middle locations around key buildings if they were close, or they were just working in different ways and maybe focusing on retention rather than always looking to show units. So self-guided tours, which in reality is how most residents or prospective residents prefer their first touch point to be, have been enabled and really, really popular. And we can do that in a way that's very safe so that prospective resident can not only get through common area access points, but also take a look at the model while alerting staff that they're on site and also alerting them on when to follow up after that tour takes place. So a good way to expand the hours of operation for the model and allow folks that may not be able to come and see it from 9 to 5, maybe it's weekends or maybe it's 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. The analytics and monitoring, so whether that's HVAC or water, these are things that we can provide proactive notifications. And I mentioned that a little bit earlier, but this is not just if a thermostat is running a little bit too hard to achieve a certain set point, but it's also if water is detected or even if flow is detected, and that's a really unique feature now that's married into a smart home ecosystem that can allow maintenance to determine if maybe there's running water. So sometimes we don't know about water until it actually happens, but now there's ways to determine flow, which is a really expensive, issue that multifamily owners have as well. And so these types of analytics and monitoring are really game changers for the space. And then, we're rounding third on a community billboard. So if we have a panel inside an apartment unit, what we can now provide is some community messaging tools that sort of replaces the digital corkboard or the corkboard that's in the mail area. So this is a really nice way to communicate certain things that could be happening throughout the property. So that's all I have today. I see there's a couple questions here, so I'm going to stop the screen share. But just if you all have some interest in reaching out further, Mike Branham at PointCentral.com is the best way to reach me. Bethany, any questions on the chat or anything I can?
Yeah, no, we've got a couple things come in. Excuse me. Let's start with Alfred's question. He asks, are you essentially creating a digital twin for homes?
I need to understand that question a little bit more. Perhaps they can elaborate on that. But
all right, let's jump to the next question then. This one's from Mike Beckerman. What happens to all the data your platform is gathering? How do landlords, managers get access to the data and draw actionable insights?
Sure, great question. So we store that data, and so that data, one, is it's not marketed or sold. So it's really important that we make that clear, that we have a very firm position on data security and management. The other piece to that is, it depends on the type of data you're looking for. So we have a business intelligence team that can really slice and dice data however you so choose. And an example of that would be, hey, what are our best kind of high traffic areas in certain common areas or the gym? And that might help, determine hours of operation or staffing. So that's something that's good there. Another is groups are taking data on HVAC based on certain buildings they have. And we have groups that have entire portfolios on the platform. And they're saying, look, we're seeing more HVAC issues at these properties. And so when it comes to budget season, we might have to provision more dollars for HVAC repair and maintenance for these assets. And it just so happens those are like in the 7 to 10-year-old range versus the ones that are 1 to 2 years old. So there's a lot of different ways to really capitalize on the data and understand how best to run and manage the building.
So this next question is, how has COVID changed the way asset owners and managers use technology for their assets?
That's a great question. What we're seeing is groups that are kind of changing the way property management staff interact with their residents, maybe even changing the way how often they're in the office. And what we're seeing with technology is we're seeing a higher demand on cleanliness protocols. And so that's something that at ALRM.com and PointCentral, we have those protocols in place for anyone that's going to do any type of installation. That's one. The other is self-guided tours. We're seeing a huge surge in that with groups that are just wanting to allow more prospective residents to come into the property, but may not be able to have that interpersonal touch point, at least at first interaction. So just enabling technology to not only seamlessly allow prospects to get through various access points, but also to send reminders of when to follow up with that guest or that prospect is a really nice way to keep business going, but also take the precautions to protect staff and even prospects that are coming on site.
So Evan asked, no, this is Lawrence, sorry, Lawrence. Mike, what do you think about a Wi-Fi to NB IoT gateway solution that will allow the owner to connect all the sensors to the Wi-Fi network of a device that brings all devices on the internet with no data costs for up to 10 years?
A lot there. It actually, we're a cellular-based platform. And so I think that's a differentiator that, Wi-Fi is a wonderful community amenity, especially with the number of folks that are now working from their home offices. It's great for streaming, great for emailing, et cetera. We would say that it's not the most secure platform at all. So with a cellular two-way encryption, that is the most secure way to stack thousands of devices in a multifamily setting. And we get it a lot. What if there's a cell challenged area of the building? And the reality is we're not having any problems with that because we're sending very small packets. We're not streaming video or sending voice calls. So your question is a good one, and it's very layered, but I'd actually pivot that towards saying, the most secure way to deliver smart home is via cellular technology.
So next question is, what are most groups doing these days when it comes to adoption?
I think the first step forward in smart home is locks, thermostats, and a hub or a panel. And, I think that's probably, it's going to give you the most operational returns. It's going to give the residents, a fair amount of customization for their own home. And what we hear a lot from residents is, you don't really know what you have until you have it, right? And so the number of people that will call in and compliment the app is, hey, I get to the airport, or if I leave, the house, I always wonder if I lock the door. And rather than turning around and coming back, they can either verify it, which is peace of mind, or just lock it remotely. So that's one kind of use case for the lock. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's groups or people that want to just drop the keys and bring their phone. Like, everyone will bring their phone with them, but keys have become very cumbersome. So that's one thing. The other is the energy consumption and savings opportunities that not just residents have, but when that property goes vacant, the staff in the building now have total control, and it's automated automatically for them to go into a vacant unit type of a setting. So, I'd say that first step is locks and thermostats. And I'd say that's 1A and 1B. I'd say 1C is access control, because now groups are sensing this opportunity to say, okay, I don't have to have a disparate system on my access control. I can actually marry my access control with my smart home components and have one harmonized system. So I think that's probably what we're seeing most in terms of adoption now.
Next question is, where is the biggest impact being felt with this technology in multifamily? Is this operations? Is it technology? Is it resident amenity?
Yeah, it's all three. It's all three. We're seeing time significantly reduced for staff members that no longer have to take on some of these menial tasks they do on a day-to-day basis. So they live in Yardi, we'll keep them there, and this will run behind the scenes and just create a more efficient workflow for them. From a technology standpoint, I haven't met a technology person yet in multifamily that doesn't want to do this, but you have to check a lot of boxes because they have a lot to think about when it comes to making sure the building is secure, the data is secure, that they're not introducing too much technology so the staff becomes overwhelmed. So, they typically have a lot of questions for us, and we'll check all of those boxes on making sure, yep, data secure, network secure, seamless with property management software, allows for a harmonization of access control plus in-unit automation in addition to guest entry. Then the resident piece, again, they're already bringing that technology into the units today. Now, when they're given an app to go ahead and take advantage of to customize their living experience, it's just one more thing that sort of marries them to that property. So I think the latest data point is about half of retention is controllable. So, the other half is people buying homes or they get relocated. But even then, if they get married to the brand, XYZ management company has an asset in Phoenix, but you get transferred to Denver, it's likely that they'll look for a similar type apartment with that brand when they move. The other half that is totally influential or controllable or can be impacted by the resident experience, giving them this technology is just one more kind of tool in the kit that allows them to really enjoy their experience.
So we've gotten two questions about kind of onboarding and implementation. And then we've also got another question about kind of upfront costs and ongoing costs. So do you want to kind of cover all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's probably more a please reach out to me because it's more than a minute and a half. But generally costs on hardware in the $500 range. This depends on what you're looking to implement, right? When it comes to onboarding, that I can take that a couple different ways. The property management software integration, allows a technical account manager on our side or on the side of one of our service providers to ensure that onboarding process is very smooth. So for us, it's not, hey, here's the technology, call us when you need us. We will be with you every step of the way, pre, during, and post sale to ensure that staff interaction, resident interaction is seamless and it's married to the property management software.
I think we have time for one more question. Let me just see. It's a kind of question about PointCentral, and we had another question that asked about like funding rounds, but I think this is a better question to go for. So as our audience is global, can you discuss your market coverage and future expansion plans?
Sure. So a couple things there. I know you mentioned funding. So because we're tied to ALRM.com, that's a publicly traded company, which means we're not only in a very good place from that standpoint, but we're also really committed to standards from a security standpoint that really no one else is. So, when we talked about that IoT graveyard, that's what scares us about startups that are in the space, is that if that goes away, you got a big problem on your hands. So groups that are consistently looking for funding, something else has to be compromised there. We're totally dedicated to the growth and scale of the space. From we right now are in the US and Canada from PointCentral standpoint. ALRM.com has a presence in, I think it's over 30 or 35 different countries now. So as we continue to scale in multifamily here in the US and Canada, we'll no doubt be looking at other opportunities as well.
Mike, I think that pretty much wraps it up. So you all have his contact information. There's a couple of questions we didn't get to. I'll make sure Mike gets them and he can reach out to you directly. So thank you so much.